Welcome to Shaping the NYC Skyline, the podcast that explores the stories behind the buildings that shape our city. I'm your host, David Shamshovich, and I'm here with my co-host,
Brenda Slukowski. Hey guys, welcome back.
Another episode, and I think this is going to be our season finale.
I think it will be.
I mean, we had the Ryan Serhant, number one broker in the universe. He could sell the moon to Martians, or at least that's what he told us when he came on. No.
And if you don't believe us, go watch Owning Manhattan.
I binge watched it twice, and it was
You
so
watched it
good.
twice?
Yeah, I watched it when it originally came out, and then I was like, oh, let's prep for the podcast. Let's rewatch it and look for the Ryan of it all. He's very engaging. He's such a personality as a person, and then as a TV personality, it's very interesting to see how he meshes the two together, both here and then on TV.
He's accomplished so much in this industry, and he was very good with his time. He's a very busy person.
Yeah.
And I think he sticks very much to his schedule. So the fact that he was able to sit down with us for a good 45 minutes and just have a chat. He's been interviewed on so many different podcasts. He has 3 books. He has his own podcast.
We brought out a different side of him this time, though.
We tried to shake things up. I don't think this is a typical episode. Ryan, kind of his reputation precedes him. So I would suspect that many people have some understanding of who he is given his celebrity broker status. So we didn't really go through all of his upbringing.
It wasn't our typical therapy session, you know.
I think we had a little bit of therapy. We had a cute little game of either or where Ryan discusses whether he prefers one thing or another. And he had some interesting answers. And I think it was a really fun and interesting way to get to know him a little bit better. Ryan is going to continue to shape the NYC skyline in addition to the skylines of Florida, Connecticut, Georgia, a bunch of other places. He's expanding. He's the CEO and founder of Serhant, period. And that's a branding thing.
It rolls into the same theme branding wise to be not just here for now, but here for the future and continue growing and evolving in the market, whether it's through technology.
Staying relevant.
Camilla, Brenda, and I were attorneys here. We practice in transactional inclusionary housing, soon to be UAP and MIH, as well as other HP programs. And so we're very familiar with brokers. And, I was a little starstruck, right? He's got a swagger to him. He has a je ne sais quoi about him.
He is, in fact, 6'3", if anybody was wondering.
One thing that I didn't get to ask him was how much does he concentrate on the substance of real estate, listings, the neighborhoods and things like that versus social media, TV and branding, and the two kind of mesh within one another, right? It's about the real estate, but not really.
It's about the branding in order to facilitate the real estate.
We're branding by doing this podcast, branding our firm, branding ourselves. Yeah. And I think it's important because ultimately people will choose an attorney, a broker, a title company based on those relationships, based on how people feel about you, whether they think you'll do a good job.
If everybody can do the same transaction, you're going to pick the person whose personality meshes well with yours to make sure that the job gets done right, because you know that everybody can do it right, but the job gets done in the way that you're looking for it to get done as well.
Those are all good points, and empathy, energy, and enthusiasm. And we talk about those things and what they mean and what you have to bring to the table to work at his firm. He educates. So Skyliners, get ready for Ryan Serhant. Today, we're welcoming Ryan Serhant, a man who has redefined what it means to hustle. From struggling as an actor to becoming a leading figure in luxury real estate, Ryan's journey is one of relentless drive, creativity, and a unique flair for turning everyday interactions into blockbuster deals. He's a real estate mogul, media personality, and now the CEO of a groundbreaking real estate firm that fuses content, commerce, and innovation. Let's dive into his stories, lessons, and his vision for the future of real estate. I'd like to welcome everyone, Mr. Ryan Serhant.
Oh, hi guys.
The excitement of having you here.
I've never seen a more excited law office before.
The bar is very low to start with, lawyers in the first place.
Sure.
We're not your typical lawyers, and I think you're going to find that out during the course of this.
I was particularly excited because podcast prep for this included binge watching your shows.
You guys prep like lawyers. I've done a lot of podcasts in my time. I roll up and the person has like a one sheet and you kind of talk about the same stuff. I had a prep call for this.
Yeah.
You guys have been preparing for months. Don't let me down.
People know who you are. We're not starting from ground one.
Yep.
I'm going to get into stuff that I think will hopefully be a little different than what you've experienced given how much you've done in the media.
David likes to keep everybody on their toes.
First, I want to start with a game called Either Or. I'm going to say 2 things and you tell me which one, whatever one pops in your head. Brooklyn or Manhattan?
Wow. He's hesitating on the first one.
Well, I live in Brooklyn. We sell a lot in Brooklyn. My office is in Manhattan, and our TV show is called Owning Manhattan. So it might be off-brand for me to pick. I guess I started in Manhattan, and I feel like I end in Manhattan, so I'll probably say Manhattan.
New York or Florida?
New York.
Commercial or residential?
Residential.
Podcasting or reality TV?
Reality TV.
Cardio or weights?
Weights.
Whiskey or beer?
Water.
Tequila.
I felt that was going to be the answer. For me, it's both whiskey and beer. Fruit Loops or cornflakes?
I haven't had either in 25 years.
My
maybe.
goodness. Were you fat as a child?
As a little kid, I was, yeah.
You were fat. I was fat too. You ever see that movie with Ryan Reynolds where he like falls in love with Amy Smart as a kid?
Yeah.
He's like really fat and then he comes back.
Yep.
That's what I always think of myself.
Yeah, compare yourself to Ryan Reynolds.
Just Friends, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
That movie?
Mhm.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. No, it's great.
Forgiveness.
And I swear. Yeah. It's a great song. Fruit Loops, if I had to pick one.
Shower or bath?
Shower.
Beach or pool?
A beach.
Losing a listing or losing your wife?
Losing a listing.
Sure.
Good answer. We've never played that game before. And the reason I wanted to play that game is I think it's a really great way of losing us up. And I love that strategy. You know, when you started off as a broker at Nest Seekers, obviously you were a newbie. You came to New York. You wanted to be an actor. By the way, our similarities don't end at how handsome both of us are.
You wanted to do stand-up comedy, right?
I did want to do stand-up comedy, and I
Yeah.
did a little bit of it, and I was pretty bad.
You were like, law is next.
I mean, I'm Jewish, right? And I'm in New York, so it's either
stand-up comedy or law, right?
yeah, or doctor, one or the other.
And now he created a podcast so
Yeah, there
he
you
can
go.
let out his comedy
Yeah,
side.
perfect.
It's one of my outlets, that's for sure. So I know that opportunity came up with $1 Million Listing,
Yeah.
but was that always the plan to brand yourself? You're always talking about visualizing, right? And my mom had always taught me visualize. If you think about what you're going to accomplish, what you want to accomplish, that's like half the battle, right? Because you need to know what the goal is in order to take the steps towards that goal. So in the beginnings, what were you visualizing? And then what were the steps that you took to get there?
In the beginning of my career, which was the end of 2008, I was visualizing paying rent. That was
Okay,
my goal.
Fair enough.
I had no intention of getting into real estate. I think I hated everyone in real estate. Last thing I ever wanted to do was become a real estate agent. Like that just sounded like such a failure to me. You know, life is too short to be a realtor. Like that's the way I felt going into it because I think I saw the archetype of what a realtor was, you know, from the movies and TV shows and the few people I knew who were realtors. It's like I'm 23 or 24 at that time. I'm not a 55-year-old, a second career kind of person who's getting into real estate the way most people did back then. And so I just got into it because it was better than bartending, waiting tables, or temp work. And I didn't want to go back to school. And I wanted to stay in New York. And a friend told me real estate is just like theater. You memorize information and you do improv all day long. And if you're type A and you can follow up with people and you can wake up every day and be a get up and go type person, you can be successful even if you're not from here. And I'm not from New York. And so my plan was not to build a brand at all. My plan was just to pay the bills until I figured out like a couple of years later what the secret was.
How did you figure that out?
The first thing I figured out was, okay, so there is no rules here. Like I can make of this career whatever I want it to be. I don't have to be a real estate agent like everyone else. I don't have to be the boring realtor like everyone else. And I think innovation, disruption, and evolution in all businesses don't necessarily ever kill businesses. I think they just kill boring ones. Like I don't think the internet actually killed retail. I think it killed boring retail. There's a lot of amazing, like LVMH, one of the biggest companies in the world, right? They have tons of stores. They have more stores now than they did pre-internet. They're just not boring. Well, the same way, like I don't think AI kills work. I think it kills boring work. And so I didn't want to be a boring broker, and I wanted to do this in my own way. I didn't have business to promote. Had I had business, had I been from New York, had I gone to these schools, had I had family helping me like most of my competition, I would not be where I am today because I would have immediately gone into, I just promote the business I have, which is what you do. Like, hey, I just did a deal. I'm going to go talk about the deal. So I didn't have any of that. So I had to sort of like just promote myself because I didn't have listings. I didn't have deals at all. It's like, I got to promote something to get business. So I'm just going to go promote myself and just say, I'm good at this. And then I'll see what happens. I'll figure it out. And so the attention to my personal brand is what I would call it today. But back then was just the attention to me is what helped me get that business. And the unlock for me was realizing that pre-2008, the product that you would sell as a salesperson is your skill set. Post-2008, the product you'd sell as a salesperson was your attention. And so I went heavy into, okay, this is the unlock. Everyone else is going to focus on their skill set and just talking about their success. I'm going to build an attention media plan from 2009 and beyond that will then drive more product, that will then drive more skill set, and I'll build that flywheel, which is what I did.
Everybody can come to the table with the same skill set. It's what you do with that skill set that's going to really set you apart.
Both with the internet, but also with artificial intelligence. If everyone's an expert, how do you differentiate between levels of expertise? It's like Duke announced the other day, they're no longer looking at college essays.
Yeah.
They just don't want to go through the headache of having to try to decipher, did you write this or not? So how do you now discern like who to work with and who not to work with. And a lot of that comes down to things that you can't automate, right? Which is the attention to personal brand, that know, like, and trust factor.
When was it that it was like that light bulb moment that you knew that this was really the way forward?
They auditioned for $1 Million Listing New York, 2010. So I've been in the business for a year and a half, just doing rentals in Koreatown and stuff. And I went to that open casting call and I just brought the attention for Ryan instead of, I didn't have business the way all the other agents did. My dad wasn't Howard Lorber the way, Michael was, and he was on that first season. And I just had to show up and just tell him, hey, you're not actually looking for real estate on a reality TV show. You're looking for the people. Like you want interesting people, and I'm that person. And it worked, and they bought it. And then I had to go figure out all the real estate afterwards, which was work. And so I think that was an early unlock for me. And then when Instagram was created, like 2012, right? Getting on Instagram in those early days and immediately seeing that visual medium and saying, I can just put our real estate content and my personal brand content here in 2012, 2013, and I could save all the money from New York Times and Craigslist and everywhere else.
Something that I found interesting, right? The first episode of your hit Netflix show, Owning Manhattan, basically the first scene, you're shirtless. Crossing the boundaries, not just showing your business, not showing your ownership of it, but showing your personal life, your family, that I was just watching, which is the Vince McMahon documentary. Now, I was a huge WWE fan, WWF back in the day. Vince McMahon plays a character on TV, Mr. McMahon. So who is Vince McMahon? Is he the character who plays on TV? Where does Ryan Serhant, the brand, and the real Ryan begin?
I do sometimes look at the mirror and I'm like, who are you? who is me?
And then you're like, you're beautiful.
We're getting very existential right now.
Going back to your first question about the personal, listen, I tell this to agents all the time too. No one's coming to you to buy real estate. They're coming to buy real estate from you. So you have to understand, all you do is promote real estate all day long. So does Zillow. So does everybody else. Everyone has real estate now. It's not interesting. They're coming to you to buy the real estate, right? Or to sell their real estate. And they're choosing you. We young agents today who really understand that, they beat out the veterans all day, every day now, because they can sit there and yes, they've got the hustle and the lack of responsibility and all that fun stuff, but they come and they really understand what the you is that you're selling and the business of you versus the business of the real estate, which is hard to differentiate, especially if you don't have the sales, if you don't have that success and that track record. You have to mix the personal like it is, or I mean, you don't have to. I would just do less business. If I want to sell less, I could just promote real estate. If I want to sell a lot less, I could not promote real estate and just do the deals that I do. And there's people who have amazing careers that way. Like that just wasn't in the cards for me. I'm not from New York. I didn't have the sales success. I didn't have the pedigree. I started at a tiny no-name firm. I did do everything by myself. I had no coach. I had no mentorship. There was all the cards were stacked against me. And so what else did I have? I had personality, I had the business of attention, and I had like a relentless work ethic to outpace everybody, because all the people that have all those things, that have those check boxes, whether they're from New York or had the family or had the money or whatever they had, they would stop eventually. They would take Saturdays off, right? They would be in the Hamptons on the weekend. I couldn't afford to go to the fucking Hamptons. Like they weren't relentless because they came from money. And so when you grow up that way, why do the extra call? Like life is okay. And it's Malcolm McDowell's bell curve. I didn't have that. So I looked around at all these other agents who were way better and way more successful than me and just really knew their stuff. I was like, they're going to do a lot better than me between the hours of like 11 to 3 when they're working. I will outpace them at all other times. And that's what I did.
Your philosophy and what you've transcended from not just real estate, but you're almost like a coach, an entrepreneur. You're telling people about how to build that brand, how to do kind of what you did. One of the things that we talked about when we prepped also, and one of the things that you really pump out is these 3 E's, right? The things that you look for, the empathy, enthusiasm, energy. And for empathy purposes, you got to be with your client in the good and bad times. You're almost like a psychiatrist or a therapist, sometimes like how lawyers are. So the questions are the ones that you generally pose, which is, what's the greatest day of your life and what's the worst day of your life?
The greatest day of my life was the day we found out my wife was pregnant, because it took us a long time to get pregnant.
You guys went through IVF, right?
We went through IVF. She wrote a book about it afterwards. Yeah. So we went through that whole thing. It took like 3 years. It was a long time. And so we found out she was pregnant, like in our bathroom. And that was like it was like a life box to check, So I think that was probably the greatest day. Second greatest was starting the company, because I had escaped the place I was at previously.
Escaped the nest?
Yes. And so I'd finally gotten out of like a terrible, terrible situation. And I was free, and we started our company and we went loud during COVID. And I thank COVID not for who it killed, but like for allowing the marketplace to like enable me to go and start our business.
Why go with your last name?
Yolanda Mui, who had been operations with me for a long time, Jen Elise, who had run new development for me for a long time, who's now our CBO. It was really the three of us together trying to figure out what we were going to do here. And I did not want it to be Serhant because like, what if I do something stupid? Then the whole company is known forever based on like what that guy did. That's a lot of pressure to be a good human, you know? Like, what if I have a weird night one night? We had a bunch of different names and things, so just dumb stuff. And eventually it came down to like, what drives the business? Like the business is the name. There's like 11 Serhants on planet Earth. So we just started filing trademarks on all the, like whether it was Serhant New Development, Serhant Real Estate, Incorporated, all the LLCs, all that stuff. It was just going to be easier.
Yeah.
And it's an easier SEO. We do a lot of e-commerce on the sell it side. And so it came down to Serhant. And then David Williams, he runs a big marketing firm called Williams in New York City for buildings, right? We use him a lot on new construction on buildings all the time. He is like, just add a period to it. Have it be all caps and then a period, right? And we're going to go with a cobalt blue because blue is the color of trust and people trust blue. And it's going to basically mean like when you're looking for a firm to work with, you just choose Serhant, period. That's it.
And all caps too. What was the all caps about?
To have to stand out because it's bold and it creates that big kind of bold S period. And I credit him a lot for helping us figure out, that even though it seems so simple, it was not. The simplest answer, sometimes it takes the most complex roundabout way to get to it.
Definitely.
And the period did a lot for us. And it's in all of our branding now. That little circle turns into like everything.
I think it's great. You want to differentiate yourself a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say even the smallest attention to detail is really setting you apart in the market.
We spend a significant amount of time. I am maniacally in the weeds on everything. I think working for us can be incredibly fulfilling for the right type of person, both agents and employees. We have a lot of employees now, but we just crossed 800 agents yesterday. We let go of a lot of agents, like this is not a free for all and it's not a charity. And so like for the right type of agent, I think there's literally no better place than working for us. But for the wrong type of agent, like you must hate your life, like working for us. Like it's just not, like we're just not Keller Williams.
Yeah.
Like we're just not like a Compass. Like you don't just hang your license with us and see how it goes. We're very in your business.
You're holding your employees accountable.
So the other two E's that I wanted to get back to is enthusiasm and energy.
Yes.
What is your difference between the two?
Enthusiasm is an action. Energy is a state of being, right? So like I can have high energy and not be enthusiastic.
Okay. Now I see what you're saying.
Like I'm high energy right now, but I'm talking to you with a lower voice. Yeah, but I'm not like, come on, man, let's go. Like people confuse energy and enthusiasm all the time, which is why I separate it for our people. No matter what, you have energy. You could be super tired. You could be talking to someone about a dead deal. You could be talking, you have a painful conversation, all those eat the frog conversations, but you got to bring energy to it. The empathy helps you lower your voice. So you can meet your customer where your customer is, but the enthusiasm is then what you're selling. Like sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. We have coaches in the sellit.com part of the business, and we onboarded 12 new coaches this week. And so right before this in the car, I'm on the Zoom kind of going through our like what Sellit coaching really means. And I always end it with above all else, because you might have a coaching session with someone where you're just a therapist that day. They're going through a rough day. So you're showing up with the empathy, but you're bookending that conversation with enthusiasm. If you do not show up to that call with a smile on your face, you are fired. If you don't end that call, no matter what, with a smile on your face, because that's the last impression, you cannot be here.
How was the transition from being an employee to owning your own business?
It's terrible. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't do it. A lot of my life, I would say the same thing. Like if I could go back in time in the summer of 2006, would I still move to New York with no money? I don't think so. Like knowing how hard it was and how stressful it was, like I forced it to work out. I don't think I could confidently go and tell myself at 21, yeah, do it. Go to New York with no job. It's going to be totally fine. Same way, like I don't think I'd tell myself to get into real estate the way that I did it in 2008. It was so hard. And the same way, like, I don't know if I would start a business again. It's bad most of the time. Like you end up putting out fires as a career. Like no one comes to me with the good. As a CEO now, and I'm the CEO of the brokerage, of sellit.com, which is massive, of Studios, which is a full-fledged production company, and now of Simple. Like, so I run this AI business, which I've had to educate myself on. No one comes to me with any of the good. I get the good in a weekly update every Friday across all businesses. I look for my dailies. People only come to me all day long with everything that is so difficult, they can't solve it. So they got to bring it to Ryan. And so I just wake up and go to bed every day trying to solve problems. And it doesn't get any better if I try to tell people, don't bring me problems, just bring me solutions. Like no matter what business book I read, like all the good is a given. Like I know what's going to happen because I'm an optimist by nature and I lead enthusiastically. but it's just so hard. To answer your question, if you look at the guy I was on $1 Million Listing, like I was in costumes with cupcakes, like doing dances, shutting down Times Square. I was like the life of the party on that show as an agent. Owning Manhattan filmed for a full year of 2023. I thought I was the same guy because I'm the only guy I know. Like I just thought like I'm just showing up as Ryan. And then in the edit, it was like far more serious. And I was like, what about all the fun stuff? And they're like, remind us what fun stuff? Like remind us when we had cameras in front of Ryan. And I was like, well, but what about that time? And they were like, yeah, no, we had to like, no, there's a lot of like frustrated Ryan these days on camera, even though I'm enthusiastic about it all. I'm working on trying to not let that seep into like my entire life.
Before you were just a cast member, right? You probably didn't have a lot of creative control. You can do a lot of fun stuff with editing where you can make it seem like somebody's saying something different.
Yeah.
How much control do you have over that given how controlling you are over your brand?
I mean, $1 Million Listing, and I would have control over the listings and like what I would do on camera. Like that was all me. Like it's a reality TV show. Like you're producing your own segments as much as anybody. This show is way different. Like I'm a full-fledged producer. Season 2 we're doing now. I'm a full-fledged executive producer. Like we are in studios as a part of like the whole team. So like we're in, there's like Netflix calls and meetings. And I think a lot about the creative direction of the show and the story and the arcs. And then we kind of see what happens. Like cameras went up on September 20th for season 2. We'll shoot into the beginning of next year. Like I always think I know the way the season's going to go. Right. And then like it explodes in front of you. Like, I thought that season 1 was just going to be like rose petals and gumdrops and it's going to be fun and we're going to show. And we were expanding across all the states at the same time.
Yeah.
And we filmed a lot of it. All of that got cut. And the focus ended up being on like the people that I was letting go of and how we were like on the attack the entire season. And so this whole theme of season 1 became like being an entrepreneur, building a company in New York City and being on the defense. Season 2, as a producer, and I can feel it already, the theme for us very much is being on the offense and what that means and like how the audience will feel, right? Like, oh, this now feels totally different than what I watched last season.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what you want. You want to
keep it fun. Yeah. You got to keep it different. You got to shake it up. The same way Owning Manhattan, I don't know what people expected, but I knew people were going to be like, okay, Selling Sunset, $1 Million Listing. And I was very, very excited to show them something very different. Yeah. Right. And have people be so surprised and just present something that the audience could look up from their phone from. That's the goal. How do I get someone to look up from their phone?
Yeah. Long form is difficult nowadays.
And runtimes are getting shorter. Like even for us, when Netflix greenlit the show, it's like, all right, it's going to be 8 one-hour episodes. And there's so much you leave on the cutting room floor, even with us on the social side. Like there's so much stuff that never makes it even to Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah.
We know that we have lots of on the cutting room floor too. Mostly offensive material that will never see the light of day.
Or me singing.
Speaking of offensive material that nobody should be seeing, you've done some crazy and interesting things out of the box thinking to get listings, including wanting to tattoo 99 John Street on your chest, which I would have personally liked to see. And also
Side and Shine building.
There you go.
Would you do Side and Shine for us? That would be...
I would not. But the law firm for TF Cornerstone at the time was Side and Shine. It was my first offering plan experience. Yeah. I've done so many things. I think maybe more importantly for the audience listening to this right now, I never treat a listing appointment or a first anything as a first anything. Like I go into every pitch and every introduction as if it's my second, right? So like we're pitching a big new development tomorrow, for example, and the team already knows. Like we bring a standard presentation in our back pocket just to have it in case people really want to say like, okay, this is a department, this is our staff, this is how we operate. But I go into first meetings as if it's our kickoff meeting. You've already hired us. I'm playing like I already have the money in my pocket. Coming in now, I've got my marketing. Like we come in with brand, we come in full-fledged, ready to go. And I dare you not to hire us when you go and you meet with everybody else who's coming in and saying, hi, this is who we are. Let me explain our backstory. They might even be better than we are, but it'll be unmemorable. They'll be so unmemorable and unremarkable that our presentation, whether it's with a developer or any seller or on a date, like you're showing up as if it's your second appointment.
Being in the social media, having your own studio, doing podcasts, I feel like I know you because I've read so much about you. I've seen you on TV. Like, isn't that one of the things why you can come to a meeting and feel like it's a second? Because they knew you probably better than you know them at that point.
Yeah, it's been very calculated. I mean, there's a family flywheel. So when it was Bravo, like $1 Million Listing was for the wife or one spouse. I'd then do CNBC, Fox News, ABC, CBS for the other spouse. And then I would do social for the kids, the lawyers, the mortgage bankers, or the vendors. So when the decision came down to who to hire, all 3 of those customers who are making one family decision or one group decision would have an awareness as to who I am. Because I can't just go do one thing, right? I got to hit them in 3 different ways.
Yeah, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one group. You want to hit them all.
Yeah, exactly. And the choice to go with Netflix for the new show, we had a wild offer from Amazon. And I was super excited about man, maybe one day we could sell apartments on Amazon.com. That would be huge. But it just came down to why am I doing this? Why spend the next 2 years of my life, which is what it was because I was early 22, the next 2 years of my life creating a television show and taking all that time and all the risk and what if it's terrible? What if something awful happens? I should just go with the largest media distribution network on planet Earth. And it's just Netflix, in a global instant with one click, that thing changed my life, And so I'm very thankful that I chose them and that they chose me too.
It's a great opportunity. And some of the concepts that you introduce in terms of negotiation are the principle of least interest, right? Which is kind of the method you would use if you're dating somebody, right? Saying you're not interested. And also the concept of making sure that people feel like they need something versus that they're just wanting it, which is a great negotiation tactic. A lot of what you did on that show is I can negotiate with feelings all day.
Yeah, it's hard to negotiate with a wallet,
Yeah.
It's easier to negotiate with the heart. We have a method for selling that's a closing method called CODA, which is close on day one. That kind of leads into what you just talked about and kind of the pulling of a deal, the pulling of an opportunity that we call our 3 Ps. So push, pull, persist. Pretty standard. So you have to determine, am I pushing this message on them because they need to be pushed? Sometimes people just need to be pushed. You are buying this. I'm not showing you anything else. You need to buy this or you're an idiot. And sometimes then you pull and just say, listen, you are not buying this. You should not buy this, or you just lost the deal. You didn't move fast enough, And then there's persist, which is you just have to be there and be constant. And then those are those follow-up stories. I've followed up with people for 7 years before they ever respond. And then one day they respond and it's just pure persistence, right? And just staying on top of them so that when they wake up and think real estate, they think you. It's not their job to remember you. It's your job to be memorable.
Fact checking something. Were you or were you not in a Taylor Swift music video?
No.
See? I knew it. There's some online chatter that says you were in the blank space music video for Taylor Swift.
We checked it and it's not there.
I knew it wasn't you. I knew it wasn't you.
Mythbusters over here.
Were you hand number 2?
My hands might have been.
Right.
I was an espresso hand model for a while. I could hold a lot. I have long fingers, and so I can hold a lot without stressing the metatarsals. I have just low veins in my hands, and so I would sit upside down and drain the blood out of my hands, and then I could go and hold anything really nice.
Were you there was an episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza burns his hands and he was going to be a hand model. You were probably did you insure them?
No, I didn't. I never got that far.
I just wanted to ask one more question. What is it that inspired you to want to become an actor in the first place?
My parents made me do everything, man. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and I had to try everything. They made me play every single sport known to man. It was awful. They made me take every single course. They were like, you rather regret the things that you did than the things you never tried. In hindsight, I'm very thankful. At the time, I was very resentful. Theater then was one of the things I did, and I actually just liked it. I enjoyed being on stage. I enjoyed performing. I then got really into film and TV, and I got really into Shakespeare, and it just became one of those things that I trended towards, and I was much better at it. I was never great, but I was much better at it than I was at baseball and at soccer and at math. It just became one of those things, which is interesting now, having kids of your own. I'm going to be so excited when my daughter trends towards anything. I don't know what it's going to be. Whatever it might be, and just say, there's the flicker of light there. And then to really feed that. My parents didn't feed the theater bug, though. They did the pull on me. I think they knew how hard of a career that was going to be. And even when I was a kid, they were like, all right, well, if you're not good enough at football to play professionally, then why try in 8th grade? As long as you try it, right? And see if you like it, to really go for it. They were very career oriented with me from a young age. We moved a lot when I was a kid too. So I always had to make new friends in every school. And I think because I also sucked at sports and I was overweight and I had rash acne, the theater thing enabled me to pretend to be somebody else, which was much easier than being myself.
I completely understand that. You were so generous with your time. Thank you so much. I wanted to, first of all, congratulate you, if anybody does it already, on an amazing career and doing something that people can aspire to. And not only that, but then sharing those things in both an educational aspect with YouTube, with your podcast, with your online course.
Thanks.
The things that you're doing are so spectacular, and I'm sure you know this already, but I'm not sure how much people actually just do that in person.
I thank you for the kind statements. Listen, for all things real estate, Serhant.com, and go watch Owning Manhattan if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
A lot of the world's seen it.
Are you living under a rock? Go watch it. It's great. Ryan, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time. And
thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Shaping the New York City Skyline at Sight and in Shine.
Well, everyone, that's our show. Thanks so much for listening.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave comments, because we love to hear from our audience, right, Brenda?
Yeah, feel free to reach out at info@sideandshine.com or visit our website at sideandshine.com. We really look forward to hearing from you.
You could also reach out to David and Brenda at dshamshovich@sideandshine.com and Bieslakowski at sideandshine.com.
Those are lengthy last names. You can just find us on our website.
That's right.